Hampshire College astronomer and Amherst Cinema Board member, Dr. Salman Hameed. We have just watched the new Wes Anderson movie, Asteroid City, which is now open in theaters everywhere.
And that's all.
It's like Spatula City, just with asteroids. That's another deep movie cut that we were talking about last night. We don't want to spoil anything for anybody. It's a Wes Anderson movie, so we can talk about what we know about Wes Anderson movies from previously. You know, Rushmore, Moonrise Kingdom, the animated Fantastic Mr. Fox, The Isle of Dogs. Let's see.
Budapest Hotel.
Grand Budapest Hotel, The Darjeeling Express, The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. This notable absence of Bill Murray aside is a classic Wes Anderson movie, is my estimation.
From just a point regarding that, I think from where I was reading that he contracted COVID, and he was supposed to have some scenes in there, and then they ended up without him.
I thought he got canceled for treating people poorly on sets, and maybe they decided to move away from him, which was heartbreaking for me to hear about. But yeah, I heard Bill Murray's not as nice a guy as we'd love to believe that he is.
No.
I hear he's this when you run into him, like, in the general public.
Yeah, or if he just shows up at your wedding or golf course to drink. But your initial thoughts first, Khalees, about Asteroid City.
I loved it so much.
Yeah.
I loved it.
I have to look at this quote. Sorry, camera people. Where did I put my phone? That I read, that was excerpted from my friend Brooke Hauser, who was the former editor-in-chief of the Daily Hampshire Gazette and who is now a editor for the Boston Globe. She posted the Boston Globe's review of Moonrise Kingdom, which of course...
Not Moonrise.
Asteroid City.
Of Asteroid City, which now of course has just left my phone because... Oh, here we go. The headline of the Boston Globe review says, Wes Anderson's Asteroid City is a crashing bore. And what she excerpted from the article is, the plot became so convoluted that I stopped caring, opting instead to pray for the end of the film or the apocalypse, whichever came first. So I went into this with very low hopes, but
it was fantastic. Like, I don't really understand how you could get lost, but I also really love Wes Anderson's pacing and storytelling in general.
Yeah.
So it might be that I'm inoculated to the way that his scripts move.
Right.
But I thought this was great.
Yeah, I wondered, after now seeing this movie, if this reviewer from the Boston Globe has ever seen another Wes Anderson movie, because it's so Wes Anderson-y.
Right.
Well, I mean, so in defense of her, I mean, I think this is the most Wes Anderson-y movie of all, because it does have, I mean...
Sans Bill Murray.
Right, I mean, it is, so you have to suspend certain type of movie imagination, because it brings all of his films, really wants you to know it's a film, right? Because the way the camera angles are, every shot is centered and everybody is aware of it, and they speak sort of like, in a very deliberate manner, in a Wes Andersonian manner, right? And so if you don't get into that, I think you never get into it. Yeah. And I did have that experience. So I like Wes Anderson, but I'm not a sort of like, one of those die-hard fans. And so...
You don't have to look at me when you say that.
You could also look at me when you say that, because I'm also a die-hard fan.
So I did walk out, I should mention, from Steve Zissou, Life Aquatic. I walked out of that movie because couldn't get in, right? So I can imagine...
It was like you were trapped in a submarine that whole time.
Oh, that's a bad
Too soon, everybody!
But...
my phone.
However, in this movie, I think where the references come in, because it is a play, it's a movie in which there is a play which is being converted into a movie, and then there is a conversation about another play
the play that's making up
the movie. And so I think it does. To me, it's like. Sort of like, those Swiss watches, or sort of like, those beautifully crafted, which all of his films are, Wes Anderson. And this one is the most intricate of it all. So I don't think it gets sort of like, lost in it, but I think it's beautifully constructed.
Yeah. There's a thing I was talking about before where the shift between 4:3 aspect and 16:9 aspect.
Which is the way that it's projected, or you view it on a big screen.
4:3 is what used to be like TV aspect. Yeah. And there's a use of that as tool to move between like the different types of story that are being told here that I think is used really, really well in a very Wes Anderson way.
And a use of black and white and color. And it is a love letter to the theater. It's a love letter to script writing. It's a love letter to acting.
Yep.
And I think it's very, very beautifully done.
And to 50s sort of like sci-fi films. Weirdly, I mean, it's not like, oh, it's mimicking them. No, but it is trying to get the spirit of that kind of filmmaking and those kind of themes, because there are nuclear tests going on, there are aliens, there are government, sort of like, government people in it, and so on and so forth. So all of those elements are there.
Well, apart from being a board member and former president of the Amherst Cinema, Salman Hameed, you are an astronomer. You used to also, though, host a movie reviewing television show on Amherst Community Television. So you love both movies and astronomy. And this does bring up a couple of really interesting points when it comes to astronomy and the search for aliens. First question I have about astronomy. A lot of Asteroid City takes place in this giant, in a town that has a giant crater that was created by an asteroid. Now, I know the cenotes that surround the Mayan Peninsula in Mexico are places that you can see evidence of either a giant asteroid or a comet, likely the one that killed the dinosaurs. Those are remnants of an asteroid impact. Are there other places that you know about on Earth where you can go see a giant crater created by an asteroid like this?
Yeah, the great example is the Great Meteor Crater
Now, where's that?
in Arizona.
So there's a place that's kind of like this.
And it's actually, here the meteor that was left over is very small.
It's like a tiny little bowling ball.
But, so that was, if I remember correctly, I think it's a 10 million years or maybe less, 100,000 years or something like that. So that's a beautiful crater. Check for people who can check online, the Great Meteor Crater, and look for, there is a visitor center. So a lot of the pictures that you see, if you look at the visitor center over there, it will give you the size of the crater itself. So this was not a mass extinction one, but if you were nearby, you would be extinct. So for you it would be an extinction event. But overall, no, those things happen. So indeed, this was created in that certainly in mind, because that is also a tourist site. And so as Asteroid City talks about sort of like the asteroid, sort of like, the crater being there.
There's also an element, without spoiling too much, of aliens in this movie, and an alien sighting, and what it would mean for humanity if there were an alien sighting, and individuals who experience an alien sighting. There's also the idea that the government is trying to convince them that they didn't see an alien, which a lot of people believe is actually true in what is happening right now. But it was fascinating for me to see that in human emotion, in sort of a national way, in a religious way. All of these elements of what it would mean if an alien existed come up in this movie.
Yeah, so this is one of those cases. First of all, the alien is very cute.
Not a scary alien. This movie's great for kids. The kids will be bored out of their minds, but there's nothing wrong with it if you want to bring your kids. If you have weird kids like me who like Wes Anderson movies, apart from Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Yeah, but I think those elements. So this is not an astronomy film. I hate to disappoint people who are going in for, like,
You mean there's
asteroids.
no real ellipsis we can view in the outer space?
And so
It won't burn into your...
That's right.
Don't look at eclipse with your boyer eyes, though, unless you're the president of the United States.
That's right. So it doesn't have those kind of realistic elements to it. So it is playing rather than on what would happen if an alien comes in or alien contact. It is rather playing on the movie depictions of aliens, especially in the 1950s, and the alien actually kind of looks like that. And then alongside with that, those kind of sort of like government sort of like hiding it and so on and so forth. So it's an homage to films about aliens and about government conspiracies that deal with that. So yeah, but it's broader than that. It does ask, which I was very surprised at. It does ask the questions about what's the meaning of life, because they do ask this question in terms of, well, what does it mean, and is there anything else or not, and religious questions as well.
I have, one of the things that's kind of a throwaway moment, but there's a scene where they discuss hypothetical stars. And I had questions about that because, I suppose that's still happening, where people have hypothetical stars that they then chart out and then try to prove. Is that the nature of how that works?
There were some claims regarding that, but again, in the 50s, people thought that they could actually prove that. I thought you were going to refer to this notion that if somebody has died, like, that they've gone to the stars.
No.
I bet
There's scientists in a room.
Yeah.
I remember that scene where it's right over there.
I have a hypothetical star.
Yeah.
It's charted right here.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, no, that doesn't really happen.
It might have, I mean, there was a time where it happened where people would observe something, and they still observe something, and they don't know. Is it a star? Is it a galaxy? That kind of idea.
That's right. I mean, those type of things happen, and in fact, we recently talked about gamma ray bursts, which people didn't know what those were, and so they try to come up with ideas. But stars, we generally have a better idea regarding that.
In the 50s, would there have been a time where they didn't have the technology on Earth, or if you were a scientist on Earth, that without a space telescope to know what is that thing over there? Hypothetically, it's a star.
Yeah, so I mean, you did have telescopes. I mean, it's quite big telescopes since the 19th century in particular. I mean, so there were big telescopes out there, but there were cases where it was the opposite. So the discovery of Neptune. And so there are a lot of mentions of solar system in there, and that there are 9 planets in the movie. Pluto is clearly marked, so it's an accurate film. So Neptune was certainly one of those planets that was discovered based upon calculations, and nobody had seen it. So in that sense, it kind of like plays into that well, it would be there, and they actually found it. So that was there.
Salman Hameed, Hampshire College of Astronomy and board member of Amherst Cinema, where we are right now in the lobby discussing the Wes Anderson movie that just came out, Asteroid City. If this were like a Siskel and Ebert type situation, what would you give it with thumbs up level? Or you can use like alien appendages, types of planets, meteorites.
On your 3 fingers.
Cataloged asteroids.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you have to be a Wes Anderson fan, because this really makes no attempt to bring people into it, because it starts from the very beginning. I mean, I think Moonrise Kingdom was one of those films which was sort of like the peak of most accessibility to a certain degree. Fantastic Mr. Fox is another one.
Yeah.
But in this one, I mean, I think unless you are in it, it would be hard to get in. But if you have smidgen of likeness of his movies, you would love it, because this just takes that and takes it to the extreme.
Yeah, I agree. This movie's great.
I'm so glad that Boston Globe writer is so wrong.
He's wrong.
and I should mention, pretty much, there are very few actors that are not in this film.
Yeah, all of the good actors. Jason Schwartzman, Scarlett Johansson, Tom Hanks, Jeffrey Wright, Tilda Swinton, Bryan Cranston, Edward Norton, Adrian Brody, Liv Schreiber, Hope Davis, Stephen Park, Rupert Friend, Maya Hawke, Steve Carell, Matt Dillon, Hong Chow, Willem Dafoe, Margot Robbie, Tony Revolori, Jake Ryan,
But I will say that
and Jeff Goldblum.
Hope Davis, one of the actors I was most excited to see on screen when I realized who it was, is not in this poster.
Oh, yeah, there's a good poster of most of the characters.
Most of the cast here, but somehow she didn't make it on there. I don't know how.
And Liv Schreiber, Hampshire alum.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
He looks so much like my Uncle Kevin the whole time, and he's kind of like a character that's very much like my Uncle Kevin, too. I was like, whoa, is he mad at me still?
So go ahead and see it, and we are in Amherst Cinema lobby, and just see other films too. There are a lot of summer events coming as well, as the executive director Yasmin talked about it.
It's also a really interesting look at like quarantine. The way it depicts quarantine in a post-like weakening COVID world is very interesting.
Yeah.
And it was shot while there was quarantine, and from what I read, it's not shot in the Southwest, which would be great, but it is shot outside of Madrid.
Oh, wow.
And so that has the connection of the sort of like the old spaghetti westerns in some sense. And
also worth noting, great music, like some spaghetti westerns. Yeah.
We were talking about that music is really cool, especially the last song.
Yeah, Jarvis Cocker.
Of Paul.
And then a great use of Freight Train by Elizabeth Cotten in there. Mm-hmm. Also an original song that will delight you.
Yes. No, not the Elizabeth Cotten version, though.
I know, right, yeah.
But yes, and a dancing Roadrunner.
Yeah. Have we spoiled too much? I don't think so.
No.
Nobody knows
it's
what
so
this movie is
intricate.
about.
There is no way you can spoil everything you want and still go in. Yeah.
Said literally nothing about the plot of this movie.
Good. Go see it and find out for yourself.
If there is a plot.
Or a message. And is that the message?
Exactly.
Here we go. Now we're going a little bit too
I mean, I feel like there's a message,
Oh,
but
definitely.
we don't. That would be spoiling it.
Yeah.